Time for live streaming. Hello, good morning. It's morning for me, so I'm going to greet you appropriately. I hope you are having or had a good one today. Wait for everything to catch up. Today, we are going to be doing some live coding, and I have not looked at this code in a month. Over a month, actually, because I think it was December 18th, 11th, one of those days was the last time we live coded. So it's been a minute. And I think we should start with, hi Enrique. Coffee, A. Okay, sorry, I'll try not to smack my lips in the mic. It's just good coffee. Let's start by looking at the code, because again, it's been a minute. I vaguely remember what's in it. A little bit peeky, that should help. Yeah, so we have an assistant that I've been working on that I'd like to eventually put up on my website. Good morning, Nick. Or Nick, I don't know which way that should go. That will help me answer some of the questions that I get. I get kind of a lot of questions. Usually I'm happy to answer them, but a lot of the times it's like things that are I could automate doing, you know? So what I think would be helpful to start with is to look at the domain. So whenever you're looking at a Rasa assistant, I recommend starting with the domain. That's sort of the file where everything that your assistant knows about, everything that it can say, all the types of information it can extract from text are together. Hi, Abby, and hi. Boy and a Polly. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. It feels that feels like not the right stress. Nick or Neek says, I'm gonna call that IPA Neek. So let's go through these really quick. So our intents are greet. These are the things the users can do. Inform, bot challenge, FAQ. As I remember, we were using this to pick a response selector to pick the appropriate FAQ response. Ask resource. So as I remember, this is going to allow our user to start a query into our database. It's a database, right? It's a SQLite database that I made from a CSV file that's just I think it's in here we go. Here's the CSV. That's just different types of resources, so books and web courses and videos and stuff like that. Domain, that's where we were. And then out of scope, things that are out of scope. And then entities, number. I remember we were using this for an example for somebody where you used a number to pick which option you wanted, but I think we got rid of that, so we might be able to get that gone. And then resource type is like a book or video or a course or something like that. And then various responses, and I think the most interesting one here is the FAQ questions. So there's one about machine learning, there's one about NLP, there's one about asking about Rasa, there's one about mentoring, there's one about Kaggle, there's another one about Rasa. So I should probably go through at some point and tidy these up so they're a little bit less confusing. There's one about R versus Python, and then there's one that's out of scope. And then various actions that it can do. Interesting. I don't remember why we have these two. Oh, I do remember why we have these two. It's because those two are the ones that are covered by rules. That sounds right. That sounds right. Okay, so we have the rule. Nope, we only have one. Sorry, we only have two. So one for the FAQs and one for the out of scope. And then in stories, we have asking for resource, asking if they're a bot, and then greeting. Okay. And then in NLU, we have bot challenge, greet, informed, and this is what we were using the numbers for, and I believe that we no longer can handle this. Yeah, there's nothing in stories or rules that can handle that anymore. So we can probably get rid of that, these examples entirely. And we can also get rid of number in the domain. I don't think we need that because we were using duckling to extract numbers, and I don't think we need that anymore. Nothing like a little Friday morning refactor, right? Get your data right. And then this is question mark. Don't know what that file is. Don't know why we created it. Not super relevant. And then we have a bunch of examples of the FAQs. And I think at some point we're going to need to go through and refactor some of these FAQs because there's a lot of overlap, particularly the one about asking, learning about Rasa, and then asking about like what Rasa the company is. Yeah. Okay, so let's really quickly train a new model and then see if we can get Rasa X up and going, and then see if we can get the thing out there. All right, so let's make sure we're in the right directory. I've got caps lock on. We are not. And let's really quickly retrain our model. I'll check in with the chat. Sandeep. Welcome, Sandeep. Nikhil says, I'm trying to set up stories, but the flow is not responding. Like the story flow will work only on the start. Otherwise, if that intent is passed in the middle, there will be no response from the bot. Could you assist me on this? I would add more stories. So one thing that you can do with stories is you can have little snippety stories, right? So I have, you know, this bigger story that's about asking for resource, and then I have this tiny story that's just bot challenge utter I am a bot. So you can try, I would just say more training data is probably going to be your best bet there. And also, if you haven't already, try running it in debug so that you see what intent is detected and what action is predicted next. So you can see sort of where the problem is, because it could be an intent prediction thing, potentially. All right, so we have our assistant up and running. And as I remember, we do in fact have an action server as well that's doing the querying from the database. Yeah, it is. Thank you. So in order to get our Rasa assistant up and running and just ask it some questions really quickly, we should start the action server. And then in a new terminal, thank you. I don't care. Which is, I think, this one. Nope. Yep. And in this one, we can do Rasa shell just to quickly talk to our assistant in the shell and make sure that it's going good. And again, it's been a month since I looked at this code, so I think it's good to quickly get back up to speed. I've added 10 stories and a lot of training data. I mean, if you want to, like, there's something that always so if there's something like, if you detect the intent ordering a cab, you always want to trigger a certain set of actions, then I would maybe do it as a rule and see if that works. Yeah. Robbie says, is there any different analysis in chit-chat and normal text like financial reports? So chit-chat, when you see chit-chat used in a dialogue policy or in dialogue systems in general, it means sort of like small talk. So conversations that like you don't necessarily need to look anything up for. You don't need any additional background knowledge about. Yeah. So let's quickly try something. What's a question I get a lot? Can you help me find a thesis topic? This is one I get a lot, and the answer is almost always no. Yeah, fantastic. So that is definitely out of scope. I'm a recruiter. Can I hire you? Like, also probably no. Yep, fantastic. That's out of scope. I want to learn machine NL. I meant to say machine learning, and instead I did NL, which I think is the code for the ISO language code for Dutch, but it works. What sort of resource do you want? I want a course, and this should look it up and give us something from our database. There are no resources matching your query. So let's really quickly look over at the action server code, and I didn't start it with debugging. I want to learn NLP. Interesting. Do I not have any NLP courses in my little database? Those are books. I don't think I do. Okay, so let's try one more time. Let's say I want videos this time. Okay, so there definitely should be resources matching that. So we're gonna have to do some additional work there. Also, if I had had debugging up, I would have learned some more information about what was actually happening with those queries, but it's okay. So basically it does some of the things that it's supposed to do. And at this point it's needs some TLC for sure. But I'm also really interested in getting Rasa X up and running so that I can use some interactive learning. I think that would be helpful to help improve our assistant to the point where it's ready to do a little bit better. So let's, nope. There we go. Odd that was the response they picked. Deeply weird. Okay, well, I guess that happened. Anyway, let's start a Rasa X instance really quick, and because I think this is going to show and because I think this is going to show the like passwords and stuff, I'm going to pop this up real quick. There we go. Now the audio should be working. Yeah, duckling server is running if you're fetching the CSV data. I am not actually using duckling for the CSV. So duckling is useful for things like extracting information, specific pieces of information. Oh, also I make sure it's actually gone. Yeah, okay, we're good. Done. Hid the password. So here we should have, there we go, our Rasa X instance up and running. I'm going to pop myself on the other side. There we go. So duckling is useful for extracting entities that tend to have a consistent form. So like dates, time, zips code, things like that. I don't really need it to handle the CSV. I'm running a server. So we're not actually querying a CSV, we're querying a SQLite database version of the CSV, and the Python code that is running those queries is running on the action server. So I do have an action server up and running in addition to the Rasa assistant. If I have a question related to FAQs and databases, it's good to ask in between at the end here. You can ask here. If I don't get to it, I would ask on the forums, but usually there will be, for example, pauses while we wait for stuff to load. No trained models. Are you sure about that? There we go. All right, so let's use this new model. So it has been, as you might notice, well over a month since we last used this. All right, and now we should be able to talk to our assistant. Maybe. There we go. Okay. And I'm sure, Sandy, if you're asking me where I'm from, I am living in Seattle right now, but I'm from Virginia, which is on the other side of the US. Is BERT only useful for conversation data analysis? I mean, BERT was trained on web text. So I would actually argue that BERT is probably less useful for conversational analysis than a dataset, than a model trained just on conversations, but it's not useful for FAQ, which graph database is good for FAQ. So we actually, for FAQs, we are, here, I can show you how we're handling FAQs in here. So the way that we're handling FAQs in here is an error. In here, we have a bunch of examples of the FAQ, and they're all handled under this specific intent. And the reason that we're doing it like this, so this is what's called a response selector in Rasa. And when this intent is identified, one of these sub-intents will be identified, and then the appropriate response will be served from the domain. So for Ask NLP, it's a recommendation for a specific set of books, right? So the way that we're handling that is actually in the assistant code itself. And you could, of course, instead of having like the text here, you know, have an action that, like, when an intent is identified, you run that action, you look something up in a database, and then serve that back. But we are using the database to look up resources that we recommend to people here. Hopefully that's helpful. This assistant is a little bit of a hodgepodge because I'm trying to use it to demonstrate stuff. My bot works with answering terrible queries but fails with chit chat. We should have a chit chat intent. Let's see if I can pull that up. We should have so just like we have the response selector, the response selector for FAQs, we also have one for chit chat. So that should be a way that you can handle it. But also, like, I don't know how often you're getting chit chat from your users, because if it's not super often, then I don't waste time worrying about it. That's my advice. Error person says, what advice do you have for someone who is beginning to intermediate coding experience and loves the idea of code and problem solving, but can't seem to ever enjoy writing it? I mean, if you have a lot of technical coding experience and you enjoy solving problems, but you don't necessarily want to write code day to day, perhaps something like a technical project manager or technical program manager role where you understand the thing that people are trying to do, and you're you have the technical knowledge of like how programming works, so you can make good recommendations about timelines and stuff, but you don't actually do coding day to day. Or, I mean, generally, the more senior you get as an engineer, the less time you spend coding. So maybe become a senior engineer. That's a long road to hoe, but. Big data, and it's hard to manually feed responses. Yeah, in that case, I might use a custom action for that and do sort of intent detection, and then based on the intents or entities, write a query for that. Is it good to use Neo4j to create the relationship with entities? Yeah, you could definitely use a graph database for that. I haven't done a whole bunch of work with graph databases, but definitely a reasonable way to organize that information. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure you can use graph databases. Well, I mean, like, it's the SDK that we maintain. There might be a second SDK in a different language, but Python is the main one. So as long as Python can handle it, you should be good to go. So let's start some things here. Sorry, so what I'm thinking here is I don't want to share my assistant quite yet, I don't think, because I want to make sure that it actually like works well first. And I think what makes sense is to spend some time improving it, and then once it's a little bit better and not just like that all the time, see if we can't share it out. So right. So a little slow. So I'm wondering if it's using, there's a problem with Windows 7 onwards where if you're using, oh, that ain't right. All right, so let's correct this action. So it is an FAQ, but it isn't, not FAQ Ask ML. It is FAQ Ask Rasa. So let's correct that so that our bot's now doing the right thing. And then it should listen next, correct? How can I learn to build a chatbot? So this should be Ask Rasa Learn. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, fantastic. So this one works pretty well. So if I say, okay, thanks, I don't think my assistant can handle that. I don't think I have a way of handling that. Okay, yeah, I think that's a good one. So I'm gonna save this story to our training data so that when we retrain our assistant, we can handle situations like that a little bit better. And then if we check our NLU inbox, we shouldn't have anything in here because we corrected it all by hand. So I think we should be good. Let's have another story. We don't actually, we want to clear everything. We don't want, we want another story from scratch, basically. Can you explain why Rasa X changes the order of forms and add it automatically changes to my slots? I have not run into that before. That sounds like that might be a bug. I would ask on the forum. That's right. I would ask on the forum and provide some examples. And it might be, you know, just, yeah, I don't know what it might be. I would ask on the forum and if it is a bug, hopefully someone will tell you that it's a bug and you can file an issue for it. Yeah. So I'm just thinking at this point, halfway through. Yeah, why don't we go through the steps of sharing the assistant, because I promised that I would do it, and then we could spend some time refactoring our intents, because it's a little muddied here, right? And I think it'll help me to get an idea of FAQs if I have people the FQs. FAQ stands for frequently asked questions, so I was trying to parse that into something else and it didn't work. Nick says, can we make an automatic greeting message in Rasa X? So a couple ways of doing that. Number one would be in whatever you're using to serve your assistant. When the assistant is launched, you have a default greeting message that appears. The other way to do it is when the assistant is launched, you send a silent intent, so /intent name, to your assistant, and then your assistant will, reply to that as if it was something that the user had typed. So that's another way to do a custom greeting. If you mean like a little branded pop-up, I guess. I don't think so. Like in Rasa X, like when you open Rasa X, I would maybe talk to the sales team. I don't know that that's an enterprise feature, but maybe that. So yeah. Usually if it's like a fancy feature in Rasa X, I would recommend talking to the sales team. Right, I was looking up the docs. More coffee. And Rasa X local mode. And the reason I'm doing that is because I could have sworn. Oh, there we go. Okay, yeah, we do have a little share with guest users thing. Okay, so it's just not in the talk to your bot screen. I was like, I could have sworn there was a little share with guest testers thing. And I think there is, but I think that right now it won't work because this is just running locally on my computer, right? So, yeah, so I think in order to, so if we were all on the same network, right? If we were in some sort of intranet, FAQ bot. And then of course you can test the development vector environment instead of the production environment, but not using separate environments right now. There we go. Okay. So I can generate a link, but I don't. Yeah, so you can see right now, this is on. Oh, what a nice little nudge. I don't know if you saw that when I shared it. It was like, hey, this is on localhost. If you want to share it not on localhost, you can do it this way. Yeah, let's pop open the docs. Fantastic. Wow. Good job, product team. That was a nice, delightful moment. Share your bot on Rasa X, share it as soon as possible. And if you're using it on local mode, you can use it during, so if you wanted to share just locally, again, on like your intranet, you can do it using ngrok, which is what we are going to use. So let me pop this down and get it out there. If I were running Rasa X on a server, right, the link that was generated here would have been on the server, and anyone who had access to the server would be able to use the link. You only really have to do this next process here if you are, make sure I open a new, gotta open a new one of these terminal, or it'll close the Rasa X instance and I won't be able to share it at all. Yeah. Where are we going to share the bot to today? So it's just going to be up for a little bit on ngrok, which is a port forwarding service. And on Windows, let's see if I can remember this. So first of all, I am on port 5002. And on Windows, you have to go to the executable. So I think it is, yeah, it's 2 directories above my current directory. I have to remember where I put the executable. And then HTTPT and 5002. So this is really only useful for this is really only useful for local testing or like short-term stuff. This is not the way that you would share your, thank you. This is not really the way that you would share your assistant wholesale to a bunch of people for like production. As you can see, this session will expire in 2 hours. So if you only need a bot for 2 hours, for a limited number of people, I guess this might be a way to do it, as long as you don't close the terminal window, which will kill it. So, let's just get this going. So that's our ngrok URL, and when we just go to it, we should see a little sign in to because 5002 is where we have our Rasa assistant running, and we didn't sign in, and there's, our Rasa X instance is password protected. So it's like, hey, you're just coming to this website, and I don't see any credentials from you. But what we can do is we can take this URL and we can use it in place of the localhost 5002 URL. So we should be able to, thank you. So we should be able to do. And this should take us to our assistant. Yep. So what I'm going to do is pop this into the other chat so y'all can ask a couple questions, and then we can annotate that data and improve our assistant. So any questions that you would have for me, ask to the assistant, and I will pop that in the YouTube chat right now. And then I will go through and answer some questions. All right, so that should work for, however long I keep it open, which is probably not going to be very long. So answering questions. There we go. ngrok is used to connect your computer's local host to the web. Yep. If you're doing this, again, this is just for like small local testing instances. If you're doing this for, anything bigger or permanent or anything other than like a small experiment with, folks in real time, I would recommend hosting your Rasa X assistant on some sort of hosted virtual machine. So we should have some docs on how to, we have docs on how to set it up, and we should also have some videos on how to set it up on like GCP or I think we only have GCP right now, which is a Google Cloud platform, but whatever it is that you're using for a hosted instance. And then, your people's ability to access that assistant will depend on their ability to access that particular server. Too many connections. Yeah, okay. So I think that there's, again, this is a free service. So I imagine that we will have a sort of limited number of abilities to use it. And I will close this as well, so that might help open up another port. Other questions, which I have gone on top of. Too many connections, yeah. Anil says, can you let us know the compatible versions of Python, Rasa, and Rasa for Windows? I'm using the Anaconda distribution. Was getting compatibility issues with the latest version. So I would say I have been hearing of a couple of issues with Rasa X 3.0.35. So I would maybe stick with 0.34 at the moment, and then the other compatible versions. Let me see if I can find the compatibility matrix. Nope, in here. Oh no, I dropped my mouse. So as of Rasa 2 forward, it should be compatible with Python 3.8. Prior to Rasa 2, it should not be compatible with 3.8. So I would recommend, if you're running into a lot of issues, try Rasa X 0.3.40, Rasa Open Source 2.1.2, and Rasa SDK 2.1.2 with Python 3.8x, whatever your subversion is. Yeah, and some people have not been having any problems with the most recent version, but it sounds like there might be some like potentially pip stuff that might potentially be platform dependent. I don't know, folks are working on it. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. And in the future, just for your own reference, the compatibility matrix is here. And I always just search compatibility matrix. Free version limitation, yeah. And if you are watching the video later, what am I looking for? The link will not be live any longer, so I will have closed the terminal window that runs the Rasa X instance and the nglock instance. All right, so so if we look at NLU inbox, have we gotten anything in? Yeah, okay, it looks like we have one tester has been able to do some testing, so fantastic. And then we should have at some point some NLU inbox, and this is where you can annotate the NLU, so the intents and stuff. Yeah. So that's how you would share your assistant with a small number of testers. It might be one at this point, based on some of the issues that people are mentioning. So something I've been thinking about with this assistant is it handles FAQs, right? And I'm also trying to do like something a little bit fancy with looking up information in a database. But I think my FAQs are bad. I think like the Sandeep says that was me. Ah, fantastic. Yash says, can we get access to the EDU resources, please? It should be. So in the YouTube link, there's a code for the project, and it should be in the top directory. Yeah, and it's just a flat CSV file. But this, yeah, that's why I'm trying to build it, because I think that it's helpful and useful for folks. Oh, quick aside, my L3 AI mug has reminded me we have the Rasa Developer Summit coming up, which should be, I actually don't think it's called the Rasa Developer Summit. I think it's just called the Rasa Summit, but should be lots of good talks and stuff. Let me pop that off. Here you go. And we, yesterday we shared a link for, I'll put myself on the side. We shared a link for reduced price tickets, and if even that's going to be too expensive for you, DM me on Twitter and I'll hook you up. My Twitter is RCTATMAN. So it'll be February 10th through 12th. Lots of good talks. We are starting to announce speakers. We got a lot more coming. Oh, is that me? It's me. I'm giving a talk. It should be good. Will does really great work. Lots of just people talking about chatbots and conversational AI and how to do it good. So I think it should be a great time, and we would love to have you, as an aside. So, yeah, so I've really been thinking about how I'm going to redo the FAQs. And this is sort of more of a design question, right? And I've been thinking about sort of how I can put together a set of FAQs that's representative of the questions that I get and how I want to answer them. So I don't know. This is very much like me talking through my thoughts. So the FAQs that we have now. Let's pop into this. The FAQs that we have now. Careful not to close any of the terminal windows and lose our stuff. Oh, and you can see in Events DB here, stuff is being added as people interact with the assistant in this directory that I'm running the assistant from. So let's look at the FAQs that I've got now. So I've got some pretty broad ones, and I've got some much narrower ones, and I have some that kind of overlap, right? So this one, if someone's looking to learn about, a course in ML, or if they ask about machine learning in general, they're going to get two different things, right? I'm trying to pick apart those two intents that are really basically the same thing, right? Someone wants to learn more about a specific topic. The topic is ML. And also I'm teaching like machine learning and NLP and Rasa as separate intents. And I think that those should actually be one intent which is asking about learning. And then I can use entity recognition to pick apart, you know, NLP, AI, machine learning, language technology, which I'm sort of trying to do in a hacky way here by including those as training examples in the NLU. And that's not going to work long term. So I think I actually need to go through and look at my intents and completely restructure them in order to get, you know, a less frustrating user experience, much easier for me. So right now, if someone had a question, me as a human, I would have a hard time figuring out if they are asking about machine learning or if they're asking for like course recommendations in machine learning, because like the thing that I would do is basically the same. And I think this is a super common pattern that like you start and you start to add intents and then you get to a point where like, oh wait, my intents overlap a lot. And as a result, I think that my ability, the assistant's ability to handle these different, you know, these different intents and correctly classify them is going to continue to go down over time if I just keep adding things willy-nilly. So thinking about that, I think I'm going to need to do a complete restructure. I think that should be next week, probably, because I don't, I'm going to need to really think about it. And I actually might go through, you know, the different places where people ask me questions, and do some sort of content analysis of that. So looking at the questions that people have asked me and sorting them into, you know, various bins. And that I don't want to do live for obvious reasons, and that people have asked me things in confidence, and I don't want to be like, here's this person's question, everybody look at them. That feels a little bit rude. Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking about. When I sort of came back to this code after break, I was like, it's a mess. It's a big old mess. Yeah. Enrique says, no more GCP anymore to publish bot. I could, but I only need it up for a little bit to get some sample conversations, and then I'm going to take it down again. And I don't especially want to set up a big VM. Once it's at a point where I'm happier with it and I want to share it to folks more broadly, then I think I will, you know, use some sort of hosting service to do that. I don't know, I actually did go through, so I did a while ago, I did a tutorial on using chat room as a front end, which is a little React widget that somebody wrote for an open source, thank you very much to them, for a Rasa assistant. I'm gonna put me on the other side. Pew. So it looks like I'm looking at the code and not off into the distance. And that, so I did a tutorial for that, and I also, like, as part of the workup for that, I actually put it on Heroku. The big problem with Heroku is that your, on the free tier at least, your size, the like a data that you have the ability to upload is extremely limited, which would mean that I probably wouldn't be able to do an action server. So if I could get it, if I could take this assistant, remove the need for an action server, really just pare it down to brass tacks, and get it to just a Rasa server, I might be able to do it on Heroku. I don't know, some folks were talking to me about CloudOcean the other day, or DigitalOcean rather, which I haven't used before, but I know they have like a scientific reproducibility project that sounds kind of cool, so might look into that. Yeah, so just thinking about this. I think that the nature of this assistant, it's going to be a way for me to show people how to do specific things. So it's always going to be a little bit of a Frankenstein, right? It's not like a beautifully designed project from the top down, because I'm trying to like cover a bunch of bases with it. But yeah. Yeah, chat room. Yeah, chat room's nice. I like it. Okay. And I will say that I am very much not a front-end developer. I nothing but respect for folks that like can do that really well. I always appreciate a good front-end project, and I'm like, oh, so nice. Like I really like the where'd it go? Did I lose our Rasa X instance? Maybe. There we go. Like I really like the Rasa X front end. I think it like looks really nice, and the only thing that like confuses me is like sometimes the top bar stuff is there and sometimes it's not. And that I find that confusing sometimes, and like there's different things in it, but like overall, like look at the little animations. Anyway, so I think it is, like, I really appreciate front-end design. It is not my forte, which means that I'm probably going to rely on other people's front ends to share my assistant. Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking about with this project, and we'll probably like continue sprinkling stuff in as people have specific requests. Nick says, if we have only question and related answer in a CSV or Excel, only 2 columns, and we do not want to mention anything in the NLU.YAML, how will we do this? Enrique says, nice GUI. Yeah, it's nice. Little Sarah, Sarah's got a little telephone. Chat. Anyway, and I will say, if you're running it on a server, you'll have more options, like connected to a GitHub repo and stuff. So the benefits of running it on a server, that's one of the benefits of running it on a server, as opposed to locally, in addition to being able to like actually have something that works pretty well. Yeah, so to answer Nick's question, I would, like, if you want to get around using the NLU YAML file entirely, what you could do is you could do, okay, so a couple of options here. I mean, the thing that I would do, because it would be the easiest, would have some way to sort of like parse a CSV into a YAML file using our specifications, which we might actually have. I know we have some like migration guides, and I think some of the stuff we definitely have some migration guides, and I think some of the migration guides might be from something that starts as a I thought it was up in here, but I could be wrong about that. Anyway, we might have some already existing, is what I'm saying, to get you from your tabular data to an NLU file. If you really don't want, if it's going to change a lot and you're going to have to retrain your assistant a lot, you could do it as a, you could definitely do it as, it would be a little complex, but you could do it as an action.py, where you get in your intent, and then that triggers the action to go, and then you do some sort of, I mean, you could even use Rasa NLU in the SDK, and run just the NLU in your actions file, and use that to match your incoming text to the specific row in your data frame, and then do the lookup there. It feels a little workaroundy, but you could do that. I guess you could also, sort of detect whatever's the closest using something like, edit distance, and then provide like the top 2 answers as buttons, and then have them click the button that's most relevant to them and then get the answer. But I think the problem there is the likelihood that you're going to get the wrong question to offer them to look up the answer to is pretty high. Yeah. Nick says, I have a lot of questions. It's hard to manually write. Yeah. I would head to the forum. I think you'll forum. I would yeah, that's where I would head to. If it's for like a business case, you could also talk to the sales team and maybe somebody on the CSE team, because they do a lot of sort of like business things. So I had a friend in grad school who was a linguist who studied Russian, and she always said business lunch. And whenever I say business, I always think of her. That's where that comes from. Yeah. Suggested links. So it's a little there's a little bit of a delay, but the forum link is this one. And then to contact the sales team directly, it is rasa.com/contact sales. And this is more for like if you're looking for Rasa Enterprise or like CSE support or support contractor, something like that. But if you have like a business use case, like that might be, end up being a good investment. Sales and support not replying to my queries. Yeah, try the forum then. It might be a little bit you know, outside their purview. Yeah. Okay. So on that note, I think we have pretty much done what we're gonna do. So I'm going to close, see the conversations. Okay, so it looked like we ended up with just one sample conversation, but that's okay. I've showed y'all how to share it locally, which I think is helpful. And if you're working on the intranet, or you know, you only need to like share it with your team, it should work pretty well. If you have something a little bit more robust, or you want to share it with like a larger set of testers, probably makes sense to set up a server for it. Put me over there. So I'm going to close the session here. Kill this one. And this is the, I think this is the Rasa. Let's see, this is the action server. And I think this one is nothing right now. And then this is the Rasa X instance. Yeah. So I'm going to kill the Rasa X instance as well, because all the data has been added to our events in our database. So I shouldn't need to worry about losing it. Exception. Okay. So I'm going to close that and close the action server as well. I don't need it right now. And I think what we'll do next week, oh, and I have a, if you're wondering what happens when you close your Rasa X instance, you get an error because it no longer exists. Yeah, so I think what we're going to do next week is we're going to sit down and work through our intents and figure out what intents we do need, what intents we should sort of like combine. And I think what also we're going to do that I mentioned is we're going to work on peeling apart, asking about things that I think should actually be entities. So things like machine learning, natural language processing, Rasa should definitely be an entity, Kaggle should be an entity, R and Python should be entities as well. Yeah, and take this sort of like first pass, which like I think works perfectly well for first pass, and make it a little bit more robust, make it a little bit easier to maintain, and make it easier for our assistant to actually like do the dang thing. So we're going to be adding some entities, we're going to be adding some, we're going to be combining a bunch of intents, and yeah, they should get better. So I know it's a little bit early, but I think that's all I got to do this week. And I need to go through and do some data analysis off camera. And that's what I'll do. So thank you everyone for joining today. I hope this was informative. You learned how to, you know, for very limited local things, share your assistant. Wow. And then for, if you had launched your Rasa X instance on a server, that link would be, you know, available to people who had the server. So same thing. Yeah, and I will see you next Wednesday. We have another Rasa office hours. So if you have questions, good place to bring them. And let me see who we have. Gotta check my schedule. It is Liam, the wonderful Liam. That's right. So next week's office hours is going to be, Liam is our head of HR. So it's actually going to be more about jobs. And like if you have questions about applying to technical roles, or, you know, anything along that line, or like how to get into tech, or I don't know, salary questions, I don't know, anything around that. Next week is the time for it, and then we will be reading the paper that a Rasa community member wrote about getting Rasa NLU working in Vietnamese on Thursday, and then on Friday we'll do the Great Intent Overhaul 2021. So that's the schedule for next week. Yeah, and if you haven't signed up for the summit yet, we would love to have you there. So have a great weekend. Thank you for all the good questions, and I will see you next Wednesday. I'll talk to you then. Bye.